The Supreme Court shuts down Judge James Boasberg. A huge victory for President Trump. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, Trump wins big at the Supreme Court. As he would say, huge victory. And here, this story broke about maybe 8:30 last night. So here is exactly now what happened. As you know, Bozo the Clown, James Boasberg, Judge Bozo, has been waging practically a one-man opposition, resistance to President Trump, abusing his power, abusing his authority, acting as the de facto president of the United States, trying now to usurp the executive branch and the clear constitutionally delineated powers and authority given to the president over immigration and over deportation. And in particular, and this, I'm telling you, I can't wrap my mind around it. Still, I can't wrap my mind around it because so many liberals are defending Boasberg. Boasberg has ordered Trump, as you know, over the past several weeks, not to deport, saying he doesn't have the constitutional authority to deport Trans-Nicaragua gangbangers, MS-13 gangbangers, who, by the way, are not just sadistic, brutal criminals who are in this country illegally. They are now designated as foreign terrorists. And yet, amazingly, Boasberg has ordered Trump, saying he cannot deport Trans-Nicaragua, and not only can he not deport them, he must return them from El Salvador after sending almost 300 of them to their supermax prison. Yesterday, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4. And listen to this. The deciding fifth vote was not Amy Coney Barrett. She defected and voted with the liberals. It was, yes, Chief Justice John Roberts, who provided the fifth and decisive vote, saying that Trump has the authority to deport Trans-Nicaragua. He has now vacated the order blocking Trump by James Boasberg, by Judge Bozo, saying now, no, you can't go judge shopping. You can't just go to the district court in Washington, D.C., as these liberal groups do, try to find the most far-left, radical, rogue judge, and suddenly now have that person decide what America's deportation policy is. Instead, if you're going to do a judicial review, you have to review this case where they're being detained, in this case in Texas. In plain English, the Supreme Court just gave Boasberg the middle finger. Mwah! Kiss it. Blank you. Now, Pam Bondi released a statement last night saying this is a big victory for the Constitution, a big victory for the rule of law, and above all, a big victory for the constitutional authority and power of the President of the United States. She's right on all three counts. And what it now shows is that these activist judges on the federal judiciary are so out of control that even Roberts is now smacking him down. And this is his friend. Boasberg is a buddy of his. They hang out together. They go to some kind of a private club together. They drink together. They have lunch together. And so for him to tell Boasberg, you're out of line, it is damning, it is damaging, and the left now doesn't know what to do, because their lawfare strategy is starting to crack and it is beginning to unravel. Now, let me just make a couple of quick points, And then I want to open it up to you, Kuhner Country. 617-266-6868 is the number. On its face, the order by Boasberg was absolutely outrageous. Constitutionally outrageous. You, a unelected, unaccountable judge in the circuit court system, a low-level judge, you are going to take control of the executive branch? And you are now going to tell the President of the United States who he can and can't deport? Even though he ran on deporting criminal illegal aliens, he ran on deporting Tren de Aragua. It was crystal clear, and MS-13. But you are going to impose your will over that of the voters, of the American people, and of the President of the United States on an area that you have no jurisdiction or authority whatsoever. Federal immigration law is crystal clear. The president and the executive branch is in charge of immigration, in charge of securing the borders, and in charge of deporting people who are here illegally. And to me, this gets to the heart of the matter. Notice now how radical, how extreme, frankly, how dangerous and anti-American the left has become. Because Boasberg now has become a rallying cry, a hero for the Democratic Party, for the anti-Trump media, for liberals and leftists all over the country. You are defending murderers, rapists, child molesters, drug dealers, human traffickers, gun traffickers, terrorists, designated terrorists who were released from the jails of Venezuela. Remember, these are all convicted murderers or rapists. They were sitting in Venezuelan jails. And then Maduro said, I want you to act as an arm of the Venezuelan regime. I'm going to let you out of prison, and I'm going to send you El Norte. El Norte. And I want you to go into the United States and do what you guys do. Murder, plunder, pillage, rape, destroy. And the left is siding with them? Boasberg is siding with them? People who have broken into our country illegally, who are not legal U.S. residents, who are not U.S. citizens. They literally are illegal criminal aliens who now have been sent into our country by a hostile adversarial power in order to murder and rape as many Americans and American women and children as possible. And Boasberg is denying Trump the right to deport him? Are you freaking kidding me? I've never seen a perversion of justice like this in my entire life. I've never seen such a gross abuse of judicial power and judicial overreach in my life. Ever. And let me just say one last thing, because this needs to be said. Article 2, by the way, it's not just that this upholds the president's Article 2 powers, but what the Supreme Court ruled clearly was that Trump has the ability under the Alien Enemies Act, under this wartime power that goes all the way back for hundreds of years, and that was used in the Civil War, used in World War I, used in World War II. It has been used over and over again, that under the Alien Enemies Act, he can swiftly and decisively deport people that are criminal illegal aliens or foreign terrorists. Can you imagine if Boasberg said that a bunch of, I don't know, illegal alien Syrian terrorists, ISIS, that Trump didn't have the power to deport them? Or say Al-Qaeda from Afghanistan? Or the Taliban from Afghanistan? Or Hezbollah from Lebanon? Or from the Middle East who came into our country illegally and have been murdering Americans? Or slaughtering women and children? Taking over apartment complexes? Weapons trafficking, drug dealing? And suddenly now a judge would say, hey, no, you don't have the power to deport him. We would say this person's insane. The Democratic Party has now taken its stand. And I want you to think, just objectively, this is how radical, extreme, and frankly insane they've become. They are siding with murderers and rapists. They are sympathizing with the plight of murderers and rapists. As Ted Cruz said recently, the Democrats have become the party of murderers and rapists. 619 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, there's no question about it. A big blow to Judge Bozo. Judge Boasberg. Supreme Court now says Trump can continue deporting Trender Aragua, MS-13, illegal alien criminal gangbangers. And Boasberg's order has now been, or his attempt to block all of this, has now been voided. It is now vacated. A big win for Trump. Frankly, to me, a big win for the Constitution. And now the question is, what do we do with an out-of-control rogue judge like Boasberg? Because he wants to rule on other issues, like Signalgate. This guy's not going to stop. He sees himself as a superstar of the resistance. He wants to continue to harass, block, undermine, and sabotage Trump. He is desperate to maintain his fame. And he is now someone who will not be deterred by a Supreme Court decision. I mean, it's pretty obvious. So the problem is still there. Big victory for Trump. Don't get me wrong. But a person like that has no shame. And so we still have to deal with the underlying problem. Do we impeach? Do we defund? There is a bill now making its way through Congress that would severely limit the powers of people like Judge Boasberg, telling them, no, you have to only stick to your judicial authority and prerogatives. You can't just start legislating from the bench. You can't override Congress. You can't override the president. You can't override the executive branch. Just because you don't like the laws of a certain country, say, the deportation policy, doesn't give you the right to change them. You want to do that? Run for president. Win, get a popular mandate, and then if you want to stop deporting these people or have Biden's open border policy, then go ahead. But you're a judge. So you have to stay within your district, and you have to stay within your legal constitutional lane. Clearly, Boasberg has abused that. Clearly, Boasberg is out of control, and he just got smacked down by the Supreme Court. Now, my question to you, were you surprised that it was Chief Justice John Roberts that was the decisive fifth vote? Was it Amy Coney Barrett on this one? She defected and voted with the liberals. And frankly, I'm getting more and more disappointed in Amy Coney Barrett and more worried about Amy Coney Barrett. Because this is not the Amy Coney Barrett that we saw before she was confirmed to the Supreme Court. This is a much more liberal, much more woke, to me, much more intimidated Supreme Court justice. And my fear is that the left, have repeatedly threatened her, and especially her children and her family. And the way she's ruling, it's like she is starting to slowly succumb and bend the knee to their pressure intimidation campaign. As just yesterday, as proven by yesterday's, this should have been a 7-2-8-1 decision. Easy. Instead, it turned into a 5-4 decision with Roberts being the deciding vote. 617-266-6868. Okay, John in Lowell. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Jeff, what you do with the Boasberg is on anything that we know he constitutionally doesn't have the authority to rule on, you ignore him. Just like you would a spoiled child. Let him have his temper tantrum and do what you got to do until someone says different, Jeff. That's all you do with him. Now, Jeff, if there's compromising information on Roberts, okay, there's no secrets in Washington. You know that. So that means we have the information, too. So you send someone to him and you have a little talk. Hey, Johnny boy, guess what? We know. And you walk away. Or you use it to get him out of there.
Well, John, look, I mean, the rumor in Washington is, and I don't like to peddle in rumors, but I mean, it's everywhere, is Epstein Island, as you know, the Lolita Express, and they're talking 6 kids, 6 underage individuals that they say, this is what they say, that they have on tape on Roberts. Now, again, I don't know if it's true or not, but he definitely was a very close friend of Epstein, that we know. He went to Epstein Island, that we know. He was on the Lolita Express, that we know. And so it's no longer about his adoption with his children years ago, because it appears there was illegalities in that adoption. And people thought, well, maybe that's what the Obama administration was threatening him with when he made that stunning reversal on Obamacare, a ruling out to me that will go down in for eternity in shame. So that's, that he's, anyway, that they're talking 6 kids. So they've got something over him. Now, yesterday he delivered. So I don't know if he's being told on the other side, hey, listen, we know what they have on you, and listen, you better not kowtow to them because you'll have to, you'll have to deal with us. But look, this is a very compromised man. You can see that. John, Pam Bondi is claiming that this is vindication of her strategy, that you appeal this eventually to the Supreme Court, and that in the end, the Supreme Court will be vindicated, that they will vindicate Trump, they'll vindicate her, that we shouldn't ignore Boasberg. We should just keep appealing Boasberg. John, can you hang on? I'm up against the break. I want to ask you if you agree with Pam Bondi's assessment. Bondi is now doing a victory lap. She says, you see, my strategy is working. Fight it out in the courts. Take it to the Supreme Court. It may take a lot of time. It may take a lot of hand-wringing. But in the end, they will be overturned on appeal. 6:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Okay, Trump wins big at the Supreme Court. 5-4 decision against Judge James Boasberg. His order now blocking Trump from deporting, if you can believe this, Tren de Aragua, MS-13, gangbangers, and they're also, terrorists. They're both officially designated as foreign terrorists. Has now been vacated by the Supreme Court. Under the Alien Enemies Act, Trump can continue these deportations, and a big victory for Trump, for the executive branch, for the presidency, and clearly now a body blow, not just to Boasberg, but to these rogue, activist, out-of-control judges. I want to go back to John in Lowell. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, came out and said, our strategy of appealing these outrageous rulings by the James Boasbergs of the federal judiciary has been vindicated. We don't have to ignore them. We don't have to marginalize them. We don't have to just pretend like they didn't issue their ruling. If you fight it out in the legal system, appeal it all the way up to the Supreme Court, eventually they will be overturned and they will come to the right decision. John, do you agree with Pam Bondi? Because you made, and I agree with you, John, you made the point before we went to break, they should just ignore people like Boasberg. Well, they're not ignoring them. They're taking them so seriously, they're appealing every order they issue, and they just want a big one at the high court. What say you, John?
Jeff, you know as well as I do, this is no longer politics. This is war. This is political civil war is probably the best way to put it, Jeff. We don't have time to be playing around with these clowns. How many times has the Constitution been ruled against, Jeff? Obama tax. I can't name too many others, but I'm sure you could, because it's the way they want to interpret it. It's their little game, Jeff. We don't have time for games anymore. And as far as Pam Bondi goes, I don't want to hear another peep out of her. I want arrest, Jeff. And the reason there's not arrest, especially with Epstein Island, is in my belief, there's so many powerful people high up that are involved in this, Jeff. It would take the whole country down. We'd have an empty Congress.
You know, John, I wish I could disagree with you. I can't. I'm telling you honestly, I can't. John, you're a very honest man. And that's one of the many reasons why I respect you, and really outstanding call. Great call to start the show. John, thank you very much. And please keep calling. Tony in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
Jeff, I'll get to Pam Bondi, but let me start by saying I love the law. I continually study the law. When a judge makes a decision, and I don't care if it's a state or a federal, they have to quote the laws that they're using in their decision. And there is nothing in the U.S. Code that these judges could use to try to justify their actions. And it's just ridiculous. And so how do you fight a decision in the law when you don't know what law they're saying you violated? That's a biggie. And as far as Pam Bondi is concerned, I would say do nothing. It's already come out. They've said, you've even had very important legal minds saying these judges have no authority to enforce their decisions. So just let them go. Well, you enforce it then. And let the people who brought these cases, they can try to appeal it and bring it to the Supreme Court. But, you know, it's got to stop. They have to be told, listen, you don't have any authority to do it, so that's that.
Tony, what's happening, though, it's the opposite, right? I mean, you know this better than anybody, but just for the audience, what's happening is the administration, and Bondi in particular, the Department of Justice, is not saying, hey, you made your ruling, go ahead, enforce it. It's an outrageous, unconstitutional, illegal ruling. And you want to appeal? It's up to you to appeal. You take this all the way up to the Supreme Court. It's the opposite. The DOJ is appealing. The DOJ has been, say, Boasberg. They contested Boasberg. And then they took it to the Fourth Circuit, and a very liberal circuit. And that Fourth Circuit backed Boasberg. So then they took it all the way to the Supreme Court. So what's happening is that they're allowing these rogue activist judges, in my view, to set the agenda and set the terms. Because now the DOJ is reacting and responding to every order or ruling that they make. So they're not ignoring them and saying, no, you guys go and appeal it to the Supreme Court. Bondi is appealing everything to the Supreme Court. And she's claiming that her strategy is winning. She goes, look at this. I told you, be a little patient, but we're going to beat these rogue activist judges one appeal at a time, one verdict at a time by the Supreme Court. What say you, Tony?
I say she's wrong. She's dead wrong. We need someone in there that's got teeth and is going to, and I agree. I don't want to see her on any of these news stations talking. Just go do your job. You know, you're not there to be dressed up and going on their shows. Things done. And then, you know, it's occasionally, you know, you want to give an interview, then you do it in the government. You get up there, you know, at the with the the speaker for the press secretary, and you make it. But stop going on all these ridiculous shows. There's no need for you to do it. One more thing, Jeff. This whole thing about an illegal alien having a right to a hearing. I scoured the whole code on it, and there is nothing in there that says any person who is illegal has a right to a hearing. That's if you're illegal, you have no rights in our country. You're not a citizen. You have no rights.
Tony, amen. Drop the mic. Thank you very much for that call. Let me ask all of you, all right, 2 questions. I saw Pam Bondi again. I'm not picking on Pam Bondi. Honestly, I'm just giving you my honest opinion. You know, my gut reaction. I saw her again. What was it? Maria Bartiromo, Sunday Futures? Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but anyway, on her Sunday show on Fox. And there she was again. And I'm like, does this woman, is all she does is give media interviews? Now, you know, an attorney general, I'm just telling you, historically, does 1, maybe 2 interviews a year. It's a big interview. It's an important catch. It's a big media get. And it's usually done from the Department of Justice. And I mean, and they're promoting it for like weeks. You know, we have, whatever, I'll just make one, John Ashcroft. I mean, I'm just going by previous attorney generals. Yep, we got him. We got him for 20 minutes. Oh, this, it's like either it's every night on Fox, every morning on Fox. I see her on Newsmax. It's like she's becoming a talking head. It's almost like she's a legal analyst on cable TV. I'm always seeing her, and everything is coiffed and everything is perfect. And I'm like, does this woman ever work? I'm just giving you my honest opinion. Now, more importantly, this is the heart of the issue. Many liberals and some libertarians, not all, but some libertarians, argue that even Tren de Aragua, even MS-13, even criminal illegal aliens have the right to so-called due process. That they have the right to appeal their deportations. They have the right to a lawyer. They have the right to a hearing. They have the right to have evidence presented against them. That, in other words, they have rights that American citizens and legal residents have under the Constitution. Do you agree? I'm just curious. Do you believe that illegal aliens in general and criminal illegal aliens, I'm talking gangbangers, terrorists, the Tren de Araguas, the MS-13s of the world, do they have the right to a hearing, to a lawyer, to due process, and to be able to appeal their deportation? Boasberg, liberals, and the media say yes. I say hell no. The Constitution is for citizens and legal residents. 650 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Kuhner country seems to be a little divided on the issue of the strategy pursued by Pam Bondi. Some don't like it. Some support it. This is from Larry on Messenger. Jeff, I'm iffy on it. On the one hand, yes, ignore these stupid orders from the likes of Judge Boasberg, but I like that this neutered Democrats' talking points. Well, there's no question now. That ruling yesterday was a blow to Boasberg. So, it takes time. It eats up a lot of time. But, Boasberg was, they slapped him down. As I said, on my, video that I sent out before the show, the Supreme Court gave Boasberg the middle finger. This was a, blank you, kiss it right here. So, there's no question now. Boasberg has been publicly rebuked. 617-266-6868. Okay, this is from 603. Jeff, I think Pam Bondi may have the best strategy on this. Appeal, versus ignore. And I think Dan Bongino laid out the benefit of this strategy very well. If they simply ignore these rulings from these rogue judges, not only does it not solve the problem and not put the issue to bed, but it gives the opposition more and more ammunition to exploit with each ignored ruling. But if they appeal these rulings, when they get shot down, the opposition can't use that angle again. And with each Supreme Court ruling, it unleashes Trump to carry out his agenda unobstructed. It may seem like it's eating up precious time, which it is, but it clears the way for President Trump to do what he needs to do, and it leaves the left without a leg to stand on as it pertains to lawfare, which is their main weapon. So 603 is saying, look, it takes time. Yes. It's frustrating. Yes. But slowly but surely, you grind down the left strategy of lawfare by knocking out one order after another, overturning one judge's ruling after another, and this makes Trump only stronger and stronger and stronger. Where do you side on the issue? Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Jeff, we got to keep the pressure on them, okay? You got more injunctions slapped on Trump than all the presidents combined. You got Joe Biden, who installed 235 progressive activist judges, violating the Constitution and separation of powers, okay? On top of it, you get corrupt judges, federal judges and lawyers, okay, wives and family members are tied to NGOs and getting consultant jobs, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? So, and they also have a secret society that they all collude with themselves, okay? So that's another thing. And on top of it, Amy Coney Barrett, okay, her husband, Jesse Barrett, is a lawyer for Fox Court and Cox Communications. Okay, this guy is tied, okay, to Paul Ryan, Ari Fleischer, Karl Rove, the Cheneys, all the whole nine yards. And he worked for the biggest, dirtiest law firm in Washington D.C. Chuck Schumer's brother, Robert Schumer, and Paul White. And who were some of their clients? The Clintons, Ari Fleischer, Karl Rove. It's the biggest lobbyist and corrupt laundering firm in the D.C. sewer. So we got to keep exposing these people. I mean,
oh, Dan, you see, you just taught me something now. I didn't know that about Amy Coney Barrett's husband. I mean, I knew he was a lawyer. I knew that. But I had no idea about his ties to the Bushes, to the establishment Republicans, obviously to Chuck Schumer's people, to Democrat law firms and lobbyists. I had no idea that he had these kind of vested financial interests. And maybe that's another reason why she's making very erratic rulings that make no sense from, her constitutional point of view. And she's becoming more and more erratic as the longer she's on the bench. So, look, I'm hoping, frankly, that Trump will get at least one or two more openings on the Supreme Court, because honestly, I don't have faith in either Roberts or in Amy Coney Barrett. I just don't. Now, we got lucky. One defected, the other one didn't on this particular issue, on Boasberg and his order to block Trump from deporting Tren de Aragua. So Amy Coney Barrett joined the liberals on the court. She dissented. Roberts did the right thing and was the fifth and decisive vote. But I can't, to me right now, there are only four truly reliable constitutionalists and conservatives on the Supreme Court: Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh. To me, I thought at a minimum, Amy Coney Barrett, before she became, confirmed to the high court, was a rock-ribbed, solid, staunch conservative and constitutionalist. I'd bet the house on her before. So something has happened to her. She is not the person that she was before. Dan, as always, thank you very much for that call. Annie in Chelsea. Thanks for holding, Annie, and welcome.
Hello.
Annie.
Hello. Greetings from the sanctuary city of Chelsea. Jeff, I love you in a non-sexual way. Jeff, let's celebrate. We took back our country. These criminals just got the message. They have nowhere to run and nowhere to hide.
Amen. Annie, thank you very much for that call. Look, this is a big blow. You can see, the New York Times is in mourning. CNN is in mourning. You got to see them. Their hero, Boasberg, just got slapped in the face. As I said, he was given the proverbial middle finger. So make no mistake about it. This is, the Democrats' strategy of lawfare. I'm not saying it's over, far from it. But this was a body blow against their strategy of lawfare. So, and I said this, I go, watch, this guy will be overturned. He's that out of control. 617-266-6868. Joe in Brockton. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi, Joe.
I'm worried that if we start ignoring these judges, and then because when Biden was president, we had Abbott going to a federal judge to stop Biden's illegal immigration orders, and they had to abide by them. And an injunction is only until it's able to be appealed. And the Bozeman one was really over the guy with the green card more than anything. But give that aside, if we start ignoring the judges, and that means, or if we get them so that they don't have the jurisdiction anymore, that means when a Democratic president comes in and he wants to do open borders, then we'll have nothing to stop him there. So, as an injunction-wise. So, we used it in our benefit in the last term, and now if the law's on our side, then it's just a temporary delay, and then it all gets worked out. And every time a judge goes against us, if we say that they're compromised, then what's the reason now that Roberts went for us? Why wouldn't immediately the left come out with the thing? So they're not always because they rule against us compromised. They have different opinions on stuff.
Well, Joe, look at his Obamacare ruling. That was a pretzel. He twisted himself into a pretzel to try to make it constitutionally kosher. He's made some very, very disturbing rulings that make no sense constitutionally or legally, especially from where he stood before he was appointed by George W. Bush. I think there's something wrong with Roberts. Now, look, getting to this issue now about, Boasberg, this is, look, I understand judges will rule in ways that I disagree with. But usually there's a basis in law. There's a basis in precedent. There's a basis in the Constitution. What Boasberg and these rogue judges are doing is, I've never seen anything like this. They're issuing nationwide injunctions. Think about this. Blocking the president from the United States from dispersing federal foreign aid, from deporting criminal illegal aliens who are foreign terrorists, and some of the most brutal transnational criminal gangs on the face of the planet. They're not allowing him to fire people in federal executive agencies. In other words, they're basically clipping his wings as president of the United States. They're neutering the president of the United States. In fact, they're now claiming, as Boasberg is, and I'm going to get to another big ruling that people are missing, but it's a huge story, where, again, these judges have been shot down, but they're even claiming now jurisdiction over international airspace. They're not just claiming jurisdiction over the entire country. They're not just claiming jurisdiction over the entire executive branch and the presidency. But now they're literally claiming jurisdiction over international extraterritorial, jurisdiction. Now they're claiming, listen to this, that they can turn planes around in midair when they're already on their way. The plane was in Mexico. And now Boasberg says he's going to hold Trump in contempt, or the Trump administration in contempt, for not turning a plane around, those two plane loads of those Tren de Aragua killers on their way to El Salvador while it was over Mexico. This guy's insane. He's literally insane. And he's going to hold Rubio in contempt. He says he's going to hold Mike Waltz in contempt. He's going to hold Pam Bondi in contempt. He's going to hold half the administration in contempt. Holman he's going to hold in contempt because what? His writ overrules that of the President of the United States and the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor and the Border Czar and the Attorney General? Joe, I mean, the guy is drunk with power. You know, listen, Joe, I can claim a million things. Just because I claim it doesn't mean it's so. So just because someone wears a black robe doesn't give them unlimited constitutional power. Now, people are going to say, well, Jeff, he was eventually overturned. Yeah, but how much damage has he done to our separation of powers in our Constitution? Look how many, he's prevented the President of the United States from deporting terrorists, murderers, fentanyl dealers, child molesters, and rapists. I mean, we're going to give a judge that much power? That a judge now, his power supersedes that of the President of the United States? If we allow this to go on, we don't have a country. The executive branch can't function. And that's the flaw in Pam Bondi's whole strategy. I mean, they've got already, what is it now? Over 140 rulings against Trump. 140 rulings. You think the Supreme Court is just going to stand there and just, do emergency session after emergency session? They've got cases they got to work on as well. So the Democrats are just going to be filing lawsuit after lawsuit. These judges are going to issue outrageous ruling after outrageous ruling. And the Trump administration's hands are going to be tied because all they're going to be doing is appealing and fighting it out in the courts. They will have effectively paralyzed the entire presidency and the entire executive branch. So how can a president function like this? He can't. And Joe, this is what I find amazing. This is literally what our founding fathers warned us against. They hated what they called the lawyer class. They said you never give the judicial branch unbridled power. They never supersede or usurp the legislative or the executive branch. They said because if you do, then you have judicial tyranny. You have the end of our republic, the end of representative government, and the will of the people is constantly being trumped, superseded by one lawyer, essentially, one judge wearing a black robe. Boasberg is acting like a dictator. Why should we bow to a dictator? Well, what say you, Joe?
Injunction, and then the injunction was immediately taken up by the appellate court, which upheld it. So if they could have immediately turned it down, then it would have been over with. But if we don't allow that to stand, then the injunction against that the federal judge in Texas did against Biden dropping Trump's Title 42 would have allowed fentanyl dealers and criminals and rapists to come into the country more. So he was stopped, Biden, by an injunction that was later upheld by the Supreme Court. But if he didn't jump in and put that injunction in, we would have gotten tens of more thousands of people. So these injunctions are needed to just pause for a minute.
Yeah, I know, Joe. Injunctions are needed. Of course, injunctions are needed. But just because a judge issues an injunction doesn't mean it's legally or constitutionally valid. Not all injunctions are the same. That's my point. And look, let's just go back to Joe Biden. 20 million illegals flooded into our country. I didn't see any judge stop him. I mean, fentanyl dealers poured in, murderers poured in, MS-13 poured in, Tren de Aragua poured in. That's what I find amazing. So where was the Supreme Court? Where was Judge Boasberg? When our immigration laws were being trampled on, when Biden kept violating it over and over and over and over and over, repeatedly for 4 years, aided and abetted a massive border invasion, no judge stood up. The Supreme Court didn't stand up. Same thing with this whole issue about judicial review. Where was our review? So when did Laken Riley, did she get a judicial review? Did Joycelyn Nungare, did she get a judicial review? So Tren de Aragua, well, they get judicial reviews. You see, so the people that murder the Laken Rileys and the Joycelyn Nungares, they're illegals, by the way. Again, I keep stressing that. They're not U.S. citizens. So what claim do they have on the Constitution? None. Well, okay, Jeff, but what about if you're on a green card or a work visa? Well, then you're a legal resident, so obviously parts of the Constitution apply to you. But even then, not everything. Here, I was on a green card for years in this country. I didn't have the right to vote, just to give you one blatant example. So even if you're a legal resident, not, all of the Constitution still doesn't apply to you. Hello? Even now, as a naturalized American citizen, as an example, and I'm not complaining, I'm just saying this to make my point, I can't run for president of the United States. So the full Constitution doesn't apply to me. I know the Constitution says you have to be born in the United States, but what I'm saying is, I'm not running around claiming discrimination. I'm not saying, well, I don't understand. Sandy could run, Mike could run, everybody around me could run, but I can't run because I happen to have been born in Canada. Well, tough. That's what it is to be a naturalized citizen. Even then, you don't get the full constitutional rights that a natural-born citizen has. Duh. So, illegals, how does suddenly now, to me, I find this incredible. We just keep inventing rights. Now illegals have the right to a lawyer? By the way, paid for by you and me? They now have a right to a taxpayer-funded lawyer. Since when? Since when? Where'd you guys come up with this one? So now illegals have the right to representation. They have the right to due process. They have the right to appeal their deportations. Are you kidding me? Where? Where did you guys get this? You just make this up as you go along? And that's what Boasberg did. Now, we're talking about designated foreign terrorist groups. Tren de Aragua is a terrorist group. And by the way, the Alien Enemies Act says that if a foreign group engages in a quote-unquote predatory incursion, the President of the United States has the right to deport them immediately. This is not a predatory incursion? Are you kidding me? What Tren de Aragua and MS-13 are doing is the definition of a predatory incursion. So, Boasberg has the right to blatantly ignore the Alien Enemies Act, to blatantly ignore the law, to blatantly ignore the Constitution, to blatantly ignore precedent, to run roughshod over the power and authority of the president and the entire executive branch. But because he wears a judicial robe, Jeff, the Democrats will ignore it if they get into power. A, they already do. That's number one. But number two, I'm sorry. Your decision has to have some kind of legal constitutional basis. You can't just make stuff up willy-nilly and then all of a sudden say, well, here, what if a judge comes out? I'm telling you, Trump is talking about bombing Iran. It's a very serious possibility now that we may be at war with Iran if the Iranians within, the next week or so don't sign a nuclear agreement. Now, does a judge have the right to come out and say, no, you can't bomb Iran? No, I forbid you. I'm issuing a nationwide injunction prohibiting you from attacking Iran. No. So if he can't do it regarding, say, Trump's ability or capability of bombing Iran, why then can he tie Trump's hands and prevent him from deporting mass murderers and rapists, illegal criminal aliens? 7:20 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. A couple lines are open if you want to join the show. Big victory for Trump yesterday at the Supreme Court. Huge. And I'm going to get to a story in just a second, because there was another victory. Two victories. And believe it or not, Chief Justice John Roberts was the decisive vote in both cases. So something has happened. So Roberts, it's like the pendulum is starting to swing back a little bit. But just Sandy made a very good point when we were off air. Can you imagine what Judge Boasberg now must be feeling this morning? Here's this big progressive leftist, one of the leaders of La Resistance, the resistance. And he's just been completely rebuked by the Supreme Court. You know, this arrogant know-it-all who thinks he can impose his own will upon the entire country, in many ways upon the world, upon the president, upon the entire executive branch. Someone with his hubris and his ego. And all of a sudden now, I mean, the Supreme Court has basically told him to go fly a kite. As Sandy said, I bet he punched a hole in the wall last night, because he's no longer big man on campus anymore. 617-266-6868. Okay. Now, as far as do illegal aliens have constitutional rights, and in particular, the issue of do criminal, violent illegal aliens have the constitutional rights of Americans? That's the question. Well, another rogue activist judge, Paula Zinnis, this was out of the district court in Maryland. She ruled, listen to this, that an MS-13 gangbanger by the name of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who apparently was mistakenly or accidentally, through an administrative error, deported to that notorious prison in El Salvador. So she came out with an order yesterday saying that Garcia had to be returned back from El Salvador into the United States by midnight last night. Or else. What the or else was going to be, we don't know. But basically, again, charging the Trump administration with contempt of court. And again, Rubio in contempt, Trump in contempt, Pam Bondi in contempt, Border Czar Tom Homan in contempt, Kristi Noem in contempt. Well, yesterday, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts, again, surprisingly, indefinitely blocked that court order. He said, no, you don't have the right to force or compel the administration to bring this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Now remember, the media is doing puff pieces on this guy, identifying him as a Maryland father who loves his children and who apparently they claim has a job and is from El Salvador. And yes, he's an illegal, but he's a good guy. He's a good guy. And that the evil Trump administration, how dare they, as the judge claimed in You sent an innocent man to a supermax prison where they're gonna think he's MS-13. They could kill him in there. This is inexcusable, unconscionable. I want him back in America, and I want him back now. Roberts said, absolutely not. The Trump administration, he granted them a stay on Judge Zinnis's order, saying that, first of all, the Trump administration does not control El Salvador. Like, it's not a territory of the United States. It's not a state of the United States. Well, you think they can just snap their fingers and suddenly El Salvador is going to cough them up? If El Salvador doesn't want to give them back, it's going to be almost impossible to get them back. That's number one. Number two, this issue has to be resolved in court. In other words, eventually at the Supreme Court. You're not a dictator. You're just a district court judge. You don't have the right to order the president to bring anybody back from any other country. And as the Trump administration rightly pointed out, can you imagine the precedent now that this would set? That any district court judge anywhere in the United States at any time could now order the president to take back any criminal illegal alien that we've deported? The president literally would be, his hands would be tied. He would be unable to deport anybody for fear that they're going to be called back. It would make American foreign policy and American immigration policy essentially be utterly guttered and neutralized. Now, I want to ask all of you the question. Should this guy Garcia be brought back to the United States? Even though it's now turning out he's not just an MS-13 gangbanger. He's a leader of MS-13. And not just a leader of MS-13, but someone who has been terrorizing Americans for years. I say, keep the guy in El Salvador. They're doing us a favor. Agree, disagree. 7:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, do illegal aliens have rights akin to Americans or legal residents when it comes to having a lawyer, due process? Can they appeal their deportations? Boasberg says yes. The left generally is saying yes. The Democrats are definitely saying yes. Even some libertarians are saying yes. I say absolutely not. The Constitution is for American citizens and legal residents of the United States. But that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Okay, just to wrap up, because this is a very important case. It has become a cause célèbre among the left and among many Democrats. The media will not let this story go. It is front page all the time. And that is, of course, the story about Garcia, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So the White House admits that he was sent as part of their deportations to El Salvador in error, that this was an administrative oversight, that they didn't want him to be sent. He has been sent. He is an illegal alien from El Salvador. They were just going to lock him up here. They're just going to lock him up here, but he somehow got into the system, and they put him on a plane, and they put him to El Salvador. So why is the administration fighting tooth and nail not to return him back as a rogue judge, an activist judge, has ordered that they do by midnight? And the reason is obvious. Garcia, is not some loving, doting father who just wants a job and wants best for his family, and he's just, working in the shadows to make a living for him and his young daughter and his wife. No, the media is lying about him. He is an MS-13 leader, a brutal leader of MS-13. He also has been involved in human trafficking. This guy's involved in trafficking women and in trafficking kids. Not just in El Salvador, but here in the United States. And MS-13 has been designated by President Trump as a foreign terrorist organization. And so what Pam Bondi is arguing, what Trump is arguing, Caroline Leavitt made a very strong case yesterday saying, well, I mean, it wasn't our intention to send him to El Salvador, but whether he's in prison here or he's in prison there, we just want the guy in prison. So, all's well that ends well. This is not some innocent man or some non-violent illegal alien that accidentally got sent to this brutal prison in El Salvador. You're talking about one of the top MS-13 gangbangers, leaders, who's involved, that we know at a minimum, in human trafficking, God knows what else, most likely fentanyl drugs and child sex trafficking as well. And MS-13 is a terrorist organization. We have the right to deport terrorists or MS-13 gangbangers under the Alien Enemies Act. So even though it was done accidentally, wasn't done on purpose, hey, good. The more of them out of our country, the better. The more of them in El Salvador, the better at that, high security prison. Honestly, that's my position. I'm not crying, I'm not going to cry tears over this guy. So to me, it's actually cheaper to have this guy imprisoned in El Salvador instead of here. Keep him in El Salvador. I don't want MS-13 in our country. I don't want human traffickers, which is basically modern day slavery. This guy's a modern day slave trader. I don't want this guy in my country. I don't want him. Bye. Hit the road. You came in illegally. We have the right to deport you ASAP. You don't like that El Salvadorian prison? It's too tough. It's too brutal. Well, tough guy, I didn't choose the gang life. You did. You came to terrorize Americans. Now you live with the consequences. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me ask you the Kuhner Country poll question of the day. Du jour, as the French would say. Sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Are you surprised that Chief Justice John Roberts stood up for the Trump administration against Judge Boasberg? He did it with that order on Tren de Aragua, being the fifth decisive vote, saying that Trump can use the Alien Enemies Act to continue to deport Tren de Aragua and these other criminal, illegal alien gangbangers from Venezuela. And he did it against another rogue judge, Paula Zinnis, Xinis, regarding the case of this guy Garcia. He now has stayed her order, demanding that he be returned back to the United States, saying, no. This has to be resolved at the Supreme Court before anybody makes a decision on whether he should come back or not. So that's two victories for Trump, and Roberts was the deciding factor in both cases. Are you surprised? A, yes. B, no. Honestly, I'm an A. I'm very surprised. Not a little, very surprised. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. And as always, I was very active on X again last night. You can vote at my handle on X, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, KUHN is in national ER. Betty in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Betty, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
Very good. How are you, Betty?
Good. Happy birthday to us. That was a great win. For us. I have to tell you, Jeff, I would ordinarily be surprised, but with everything going on, I'm not really, because he knows he's in too much hot water. He knows he's in the wrong. I don't know. But I'm glad it worked out that way. You know, as far as you talking about this guy turning planes around, this is totally insane. I mean, this is crazy. How did we get here, Jeff? It's kind of like, okay, so our administration, there's no room to make a mistake. I mean, look at the Biden administration and all these other administrations who let these criminals, rapists, and murderers slip through the cracks every day, all day, to re-offend and murder people, rape people. They're not talking about that. And this is like, can somebody just be frickin' in charge? This is a hard end to the frickin' O to me. No, we don't turn the planes around. No, they don't get to live by our rules. No, they have no rights. Throw them in the river. What the hell? I mean, this is so insane that we're even talking about this. I mean, they have these people slipping through the cracks, and they're just reoffending. How do you want to, I mean, do you want to go talk to these people like the parents that lost these kids to brutal murderers? I mean, the horrific crimes that are happening on their watch is out of control. I mean, now you want to turn planes around. It's insane. I think Trump should just keep being Trump, keep winning. End of story. He's the president.
Drop the mic. I put Americans and innocent victims above criminals, illegals, and terrorists. But that's me. I want to hear from you. All of your calls next. 7:50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 512. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. Jeff, even if this illegal alien Garcia were a model father, church deacon, member of the Rotary, and Little League coach, he was here illegally, and let the El Salvadorian justice system figure out what to do with him, and go grab his kid and wife and skedaddle them back to El Salvador as well. After all, we don't want to separate families. 512, I agree with you completely. Absolutely. This is from Kyle on Messenger. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told MS-13 initiation is murder. So that Maryland guy, this criminal illegal, current or ex-MS-13, he needs to go. Bingo, Kyle. So that's what I mean. I mean, like, this is who the Democrats are defending. This is who these rogue judges are defending. Okay, it happened. We didn't intend to deport him to El Salvador. Hey, it's still okay. All's well that ends well. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree? Barbara in Maryland. Thanks for holding, Barbara, and welcome.
Bonjour. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Barbara?
Pretty good. And I tell you what, I agree with you 100%. And I think the Trump administration, I love the transparency, but sometimes there's a little too much transparency, in my opinion. We don't need to see them every day. Every day, a press conference, every day, getting bombarded with all this BS from the press. Do what you got to do. Just get it done. I think a weekly press conference is enough, don't you? I mean, it gives the Democrats so much to talk about because everything that he's doing is the right thing. And I just think we put too much of it out there.
Oh, Barbara, I agree. I completely agree. Well, apparently, look, I'm just getting text messages from, the great audience. And they're saying, Jeff, Pam Bondi is going to be on Fox News again this morning. I mean, so she was on last night. She was on Sunday. She's on this morning. Apparently she's going to be on again this afternoon. Then they've got her booked for Newsmax later today. Like all this woman does is do interview after interview after interview after interview. But I never see anybody getting arrested. Like, and I don't mean, yes, it's great. These Trinidad guys are being, deported or detained, arrested, and sent back. Of course, it's wonderful. But I'm talking about, look, massive scandal. Elon Musk broke it wide open. The Biden regime were giving fake, fraudulent Social Security numbers to countless illegal aliens to register them to vote, and many of them did vote. Is she going after anybody in the Biden administration that was involved in this? Anybody? Mayorkas? Kamala Harris? I mean, I could run down the whole list. Merrick Garland, they were all involved in this. Joe Biden, obviously? Nothing. There's never a high-profile arrest. All she does is talk, talk, talk. And I'm sorry, I want an attorney general who's action, action, action. I don't want all talk, no action. I want little talk, as you put it, once a week is fine. Hold a conference, or if you have to do an interview, do an interview. Little talk, a lot of action. Am I wrong, Barbara?
No, you're absolutely right. Pam Bondi's a softie. And, you see how Kristi Noem, that to me, that's Iron Lady. If there was ever anybody that I think is a female, a woman that's presidential timber, it is Kristi Noem. She gets the job done. Beautiful, low-key, on the job all the time. I mean, she's like a cow. I just love her. She's got what it takes to me, in my opinion. Because, I think Pam seems to have some sort of emotional ties to some things. I'm surprised that she has not gone into that New York DA's office, whatever it is, where they've got all those Jeffrey Epstein files. When she did not go in there with guns blazing to get those files, when they refused to give them to her, that told me everything I need to know about her, because that shouldn't have happened. If they can go into President Trump's house with guns, helicopters over the head, with orders to shoot to kill, she can get what she wants from any DA's office anywhere in this country, and if she had the cojones to do it. And I just don't think she's the one. I thought Matt Whitaker was going to be his AG, to tell you the truth. I thought Matt Whitaker or Paxton from down in
Paxton would have been infinitely better than Pam Bondi. Whitaker would have been better. I agree with you. Whitaker would have been much better. Paxton is a pit bull. He's not as telegenic. He's not as articulate. He's not as smooth on television, for example, as she is. She's very articulate. There's no question. But the guy's like he's like a rabid bulldog. I mean, once he gets his jaws into you, he doesn't let go. And that's what I think we need as AG. And look, Barbara, you're right. Here, huge scandal. This is now undeniable. Letitia James, her and Alvin Bragg were the architect of, trying to put Trump in jail on those bogus charges. She's now committed tax fraud. There's no question. She cheated on her taxes. She committed mortgage fraud. It's now, we got her 6 ways to Sunday. And Letitia James should be in handcuffs. Yet, from everything I'm hearing, Pam Bondi is reluctant to pull the proverbial trigger. She says it's going to be called politicized, that it's revenge, it's retribution, it's going to make the Justice Department look bad. I'm like, well, they're going to attack you no matter what you do. That's number one. Number two, is she guilty of those crimes? Yes. Then arrest her. I mean, they went after Trump on nothing. They framed an innocent man. We're going to let a guilty woman go because you're afraid of the blowback from the Democrats and the media about how, the perception of the Department of Justice? Who cares? So this is what I'm talking about. Letitia James has committed tax fraud. She's committed mortgage fraud. She's committed other acts that are blatantly illegal and criminal. And I'm not talking state. These are federal violations of the law. So Pam Bondi could take her out anytime she wants. Nothing. To your point, if this was Matt Whitaker, she'd be behind bars. If this was Ken Paxton, she'd be in an orange jumpsuit. Barbara, final word to you.
Well, everything that you said, kudos, because that's just it. And women, a lot of times, hey, everybody is not brass necks, able to just handle it and get it done. And Pam Bondi is more concerned about her image than she should be. What she needs to do is get the job done and stop talking about it. And I wish that I love Caroline Lovett. She is fantastic. But once a week or twice a week at the most is enough for that too. And stop giving the media all of this this fodder. It's just giving them gasoline to throw on stuff. And I can't understand why everybody that's attacking the Tesla dealerships, why haven't they been rounded up on buses? Why haven't they had some paddy wagons, a whole lot of them out there, and just put them all in it? You can't do what they're doing, firebombing and all this destruction. I don't understand why that's even being allowed. After the first time it happened, they should have brought the hammer down and put an end to it. Well, I don't understand why the Republicans always feel like, well, we got to be the nice guys. Later for that, we're past that.
Oh, I so agree. Well, Barbara, you heard that latest story. It's outrageous. Some crazy moonbat took a huge rock, and threw it through the windshield of it was a woman driving a Tesla, and she was pregnant, and he badly injured a pregnant woman as he threw a rock through the windshield of a Tesla. This is violence. This is terrorism. People are being assaulted. People are being pelted with rocks. Cars are being burned. Dealerships are being shot up. It's becoming, it's Antifa all over again. So I agree with you. They need to start arresting people and arresting people in big numbers. Barbara, I always love it when you call in. Thank you so much for that call. Let's go to Mike in Brighton. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning.
Mike.
Couple of different subjects you've crossed over since I've been on the phone, but let's take them all quick.
Go ahead. Whatever you want to talk about, Mike. It's all fair game.
I'm surprised that Robert's circling back, but he's got to show the appearance of impropriety. Trump's has to play three-dimensional chess with the courts, because if you remember, the Democrats were trying to push the idea of getting rid of the Supreme Court or filling it full of liberals when they were in office. If he does not follow the order of the lower courts and he circumvents it, it's a short-term win. It's everybody's happy. I want red meat. I want people in jail. I want to see Pam Bondi doing all of the things that you just discussed. And Barbara, she was fantastic. But the reality is, if you circumvent those judges, now you've given the left fodder for taking out the judicial system that we have. Even though it's flawed, he has to follow some of that. He can't do what Biden did. Biden just said, no, I'm not following it. Nobody gave him crap about it. But if Trump does it, he's got the press, full bore, double barrel locked. They're going to shoot every single weapon they have at him. He's got to soft pan it, and he's got to keep the Supreme Court in the state that it is, or at least in the structure that it is. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart, and then it's anarchy. Then if it doesn't become anarchy in his administration, it will in the next one. So I want everything that everybody's screaming about. Bondi needs to put somebody in jail. She doesn't have anybody in jail, but within the next month, she should be let go, and he needs to put a pit bull in there. But unfortunately, they're destroying all the evidence as they sit there twiddling their thumbs. The press is one of the major factors in this, and no matter what they do, they're going to get crap. But if he circumvents the judges, or at least ignores them, then the system falls apart. And if the system falls apart, there is no saving it, because then they have the ammunition they have to say, see, he's abusing the courts. We need to do X, Y, and Z, and we'll end up losing the court. We may have a Supreme Court that has some value to it. Roberts is one of the key figures, and Tony Barrett. They're both bad, but we got to live with what we got right now until they can be replaced.
Well, Mike, look, that's why there is a solution to all this. So we don't go down any road that could lead to quicksand or problems that we don't want for the president, for the republic, for our country. There's a bill in Congress. Mike Johnson says he wants to put it up for a vote that would rein in these out of control judges, that would have them now do what they're supposed to do, which is rule on the Constitution and not make law, but interpret the law, and control these judges, restrain them, and force them, limit their powers, limit their authority, limit what they can rule on, ban nationwide injunctions, which should have been done a long time ago, ban these temporary restraining orders against the President of the United States or any national policy. These are district judges. They should only be involved in their limited jurisdiction. Their writ does not apply across the entire country. It doesn't in the Constitution. They've made this power up. They're usurping the power of Congress and the power of the presidency. So pass a law, and with teeth, with real punishment, that if you violate the separation of powers, if you want to impose, like this clown, Judge Bozo, a nationwide injunction, then you will be automatically disbarred, and you will lose all of your benefits and your pension. And, just keep upping the penalty, because you can't have judges abusing their authority the way they've been abusing their authority. This has only been going on for about the last 20, 25 years. This is activism. This is left-wing Democrat activism on the court system. This is not something that we had for most of the history of our country. And it's a threat. I'm telling you, it's an existential threat to I agree with Stephen Miller all the way. This is an existential threat to our democracy. If a judge can literally overturn the will of the people, an entire presidential election, Trump ran on deporting Tren de Aragua. He ran on it. He ran on deporting MS-13. He ran on deporting criminal illegal aliens. I mean, again and again, speech after speech after speech after speech. And one judge is going to defy the will of the people? A mandate? 77 million voters? Because he just doesn't like the president's policy? Blank him. And so you defund these guys. If you have to get rid of the entire district court level, get rid of it. It's not in the Constitution. We don't need it. Or pass this bill and limit their authority, and with punishments. You cross that line, you get disbarred, and you lose your salary, you lose your benefits, and you will never be allowed to be a judge or a lawyer again. And that'll solve the issue in a New York minute. But instead, last week they were arguing over, I'm not kidding, remote voting from home. Now apparently that was settled with Anna Paulina Luna. So Johnson cut a deal with her. So let's see what the Republicans are going to do. Trump needs to get involved. J.D. Vance needs to get involved. And they got to go to Johnson and go to Thune and say, look, I want this bill up for a vote, and I want it passed, and I want it passed pronto. And that's it. We've neutered the rogue judges. Let's move on. Next, the SAVE Act. We're going to end corruption in our elections. We're going to end voter fraud. Pass it. Next. That's the only way to do this. But you need speed, you need intensity, you need momentum, you need leadership. And sadly, I don't see it in MAGA Mike, or Mini Mike as I call him now, or John Thune. That's why, to me, let J.D. Vance go up on Capitol Hill, let him crack some heads, because J.D. will get you results. Mike, thank you for that call. Gardner in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Gardner, and welcome.
Jeff, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Gardner.
Yeah, I just wanted to get in touch because there are a couple things that I'd love to add into the mix here that I think are being missed. First, the word immigration doesn't appear in the U.S. Constitution, and it was a state issue until 1875 with a decision in a case called Chi Lung v. Freeman, which was a really bad Supreme Court decision. The word naturalization is in there, but the word immigration is not. I'd also like to mention that there are numerous people who are being held right now who are not being given due process. Many of them, one of them is an Army veteran who's lived here for 30 years. So logically speaking, unless another country is asking for extradition of people who have already been convicted of being criminals in that country, no one in the United States can actually logically say that someone is guilty of a crime unless they're given due process here. And this goes all the way back to John Locke's Second Treatise of Government, published in 1670. It goes to the Declaration of Independence, that people are born innately with human rights, and it doesn't matter whether the government is the U.S.
I know, Gardner, you've called before with that theory, and I mean, look, number one, we're governed by the Constitution, not the Declaration of Independence. I love the Declaration of Independence. It's a great document, but it's not our founding document. Our founding document that actually governs us is the Constitution. And I'm very familiar with John Locke. I don't want to get lost in the philosophical weeds. Honestly, I think the guy was a nut job. He made up this state of nature. There is no state of nature. It's all made up. I think, to me, societies are organic. Societies have different rights. It depends on the constitutions of each country. It depends on their culture, their history, their heritage, their religious faith. There are many things that go into what constitute rights for some countries and other rights for other countries. So, to me, this is all nonsense. I'll be brutally honest with you. You commit a crime in another country, and you come illegally into our country, we have every right to deport you. I don't care if El Salvador wants you extradited or not. We have the right to police our borders. We have the right to protect our citizens. And the rights of our citizens supersede the rights of foreigners or non-citizens, and especially illegal aliens. Now, you want to be in this country 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years as an illegal. An illegal is an illegal is an illegal. And they are not entitled to constitutional rights. By your definition, if you want to do it quote unquote logically, then the Constitution applies to the entire world. If everybody has these so-called natural human rights, then our Constitution should apply to the entire world. It obviously doesn't, and it shouldn't. Constitutions are designed for specific peoples, specific cultures, specific nations. I'm not giving you theory, I'm giving you reality. That's history. I'm going back thousands of years. That's United States is different from France. In France, you're presumed guilty until proven innocent. And that has to do with many factors. What I'm saying is countries have different cultures, hence they have different constitutions, hence they have a different concept of rights. Some countries don't even believe in rights. Trump wins big at the Supreme Court. Story broke at about 8 o'clock, 8:30 last night. But anyway, huge defeat for rogue activist judges, in particular, Judge Bozo. Judge James Boasberg, he was the one that literally issued an order, an incredible order, barring him, preventing him, blocking him from deporting Tren de Aragua and MS-13 gangbangers from the United States, either back to Venezuela or to that Supermax prison in El Salvador. And the court ruled 5-4 with Chief Justice Roberts being the key deciding vote, saying no, President Trump, under the Alien Enemies Act, has the right to keep deporting Tren de Aragua. To me, it's like saying the sky is blue. You have criminal, violent, illegal aliens who are part of a foreign terrorist organization who have come to the United States, and they are murdering, pillaging, raping, drug dealing, committing unspeakable, heinous crimes. And the judge is telling the president he doesn't have the right to deport them? Are you kidding me? Where federal immigration law is crystal clear, it is under the sole control of the president, under the executive branch, under Article 2 of the Constitution. I mean, this is a no-brainer. So, Boasberg now has egg on his face. And now the liberals and Democrats have to ask themselves, why are they continuously defending murderers and rapists? And my answer is because they've become the party of murderers and rapists. Agree, disagree? Linda in Medford. Thanks for holding, Linda, and welcome.
Well, one of the things that bums me about so much of this is these individuals who are dealing fentanyl and sex trafficking. They must have a lot of money. Why are we paying for their trip back out of the country and legal representation? And where are their accounts? Who's getting all the money that very likely has built up over the years?
You know, Linda, that is a fantastic point. I hope they're seizing their assets and all their illicit gains and their money. You're right. I mean, that's expensive to fly them over there. We got to pay El Salvador. Now, it's cheaper to pay them in El Salvador and to incarcerate them here. But we're still paying El Salvador a fee every year to imprison these murderers and thugs. So you're right, Linda. We should be using their money to fly them there and their money to put them behind bars.
The other thing, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I've become addicted to YouTube, and I've followed Pam Bondi on it, and she seems to have a way in which she builds her cases, that she goes back years, researches context, and looks for patterns. And one of the judges, I don't know if it's Boasberg, but one of the judges, and now she was working on another, when certain attorneys came before him, evidence was thrown out, and on technicalities, the individuals got off. So I wonder if it's just that's how her mind works. She puts everything together and builds her case, and perhaps that's why she isn't in court.
Well, Linda, look, let me tell you this. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. And, another month, another 2 months, I'm willing to give her more time. But as I'm speaking to you now, I'm not making this up. I got TV screens in my studio. She's on TV again. Like, is all this woman does? Seriously, is all that she does is just go on TV and do interviews? She's on Fox right now. And she's going, are you a pundit? Are you a talking head? I mean, are you auditioning to be a Fox News contributor or a Newsmax contributor? Because all I ever see is this woman on TV. I see her in the morning. I see her in the afternoon. I see her at night. I see her on weekdays. I see her on weekends. So if I was her boss, if I was Trump, I'd call her into my office and say, hey, look, Pam, it's great that you're so good on television, but when do you have time to actually do your job? So she may be building up cases. She may be dotting her I's and crossing her T's, as you're saying, Linda. I hope she is. But in all honesty, this woman is spending way too much time on television. Look, I take no pleasure in saying any of this. I really don't. I want Trump's cabinet to be immensely successful. I had very high hopes for Pam Bondi. I liked what she did in Florida for the most part. I thought she was an excellent state attorney general. But so far, I'm not liking what I'm seeing. I'm just going to put my cards on the table. And I want to read this from Marianne. And I think in many ways she hits the nail right on the head. Jeff, good morning. Well, good morning to you, Marianne. Pam Bondi, again, I say she's bucking for a contributor spot on Fox. She cannot possibly have the time to do the job that she was hired for with all of her TV appearances to brag and take credit for anything she can. I said it before and I'll say it again. And this is all in caps. She is out of her league and needs to be dismissed and replaced by someone equipped and willing to do the job, such as with Letitia James and all of the others she should be going after. I am fired up about this. So am I. So am I. And look, let me just ask all of you. Let's just step back objectively. Let's take Merrick Garland, Joe Biden's very corrupt attorney general, who I honestly think belongs behind bars. Okay? But let that go. Look how aggressive he was. And the prosecutors at the DOJ under his watch, under his leadership, they went after every J6er you could find on planet Earth. They went after Granny. They went after Grandpa. I'm not kidding. They went. You walked literally Grandma unarmed, walking up and around the state on Capitol Hill, the U.S. Capitol, taking a selfie with a police officer, 5 minutes, and then leaves. 10, 12, 15 years in jail. How many J6ers? Again, no due process rights. Notice, Trender Aragua, due process. MS-13, due process. Criminal illegal aliens, due process. Terrorists, due process. But American citizens, January 6, no due process. They didn't have access to their lawyers. They didn't even know what charges were being leveled against them. Many of them were sitting in a jail in solitary confinement for 6 months, a year, even 18 months. And forgive me, in their own urine and feces, in horrible, dreadful conditions, a gulag, essentially a gulag. Now, look how aggressive they were in going after innocent American citizens. Look how aggressive they were. They practically legally crucified Trump. And he was an innocent man. Now, you're going to say, Jeff, we're not them. Of course we're not them. My point is just this. Look, when they have the Department of Justice, holy shamoly, everybody's going to jail. Innocent people are going to jail. It's prosecute, prosecute, prosecute. They went after the former president of the United States. They went after the leading presidential candidate. They went after Peter Navarro. They on trumped up charges, put his ass in jail. Steve Bannon on trumped up charges, his ass in jail. Innocent J6ers, they threw the book at him. Now, I'm not asking to go after innocent people. Quite the contrary. They're guilty of sin. I'm not saying go after your political opponents because they're your political opponents. I'm not saying just throw people in jail for the sake of throwing people in jail. What I'm saying is, when you've got people that are guilty and as corrupt and criminal as the people around Joe Biden and some of these top Democrats, and she's sitting around just twiddling her thumbs and doing interview after interview and worrying about the makeup on her face and her complexion because she has to look perfect for television. That's not what I wanted in my attorney general. Now, is she slightly better than Jeff Sessions? Yes. Why? Because Jeff Sessions did nothing, but you never saw the guy. He just hid in the Justice Department. Where's Jeff? We don't know. He's in the bunker somewhere. He's afraid of his own shadow. This one at least explains, articulates. I mean, she's everywhere. All she's doing is talking, but at least she's everywhere. But I wanted action. I wanted people in jail. Now, let me just give you an example. I mentioned Letitia James. I mean, you got to look this up. Dead to rights on tax fraud. There's no getting around it. We're talking about embezzling money. We're talking about mortgage fraud. And these are all federal crimes that she committed. Nothing. I'm telling you, nothing. Okay, let that go. Listen now, this is Senator Eric Schmidt. He's one of the good guys. I love him. He's a Trump Republican from Missouri, as they say down there. And Judge Boasberg. Okay? Now, this is the guy that's waging war against Trump. He just got smacked down by the Supreme Court. Remember, I talked about this maybe a week ago, 10 days ago, I can't quite remember, where he demanded to be the chief judge on this bogus Signalgate lawsuit, where they're looking now to put Pete Hegseth in jail. Okay, they're going to put Pete Hegseth in jail over nothing, literally over nothing. And remember, it's supposed to be random. You're not supposed to be demanding cases as a judge. That's illegal, my friend. That's an abuse of judicial power. That's a crime. Well, listen now. This is Senator Schmidt, Eric Schmidt. He says, there was an emergency judge. In other words, Boasberg was on vacation. And if there was to be a case that the court was going to, that district court was going to take up, this emergency judge is the one on standby to take the case. Boasberg, from his vacation, his hotel or whatever he was staying at, beach house, whatever, calls and tells the emergency judge, no, you're not taking this Signalgate case. I am. In other words, I'm going to get Trump. I want all the cases dealing with the Trump administration because obviously he's out to bring Trump down. That is illegal. That is a gross judicial abuse of power. Listen now to Schmidt. In fact, you know what? It's a minute cut. I want to play it on the other side because I don't want to rush it. So he says, look, Boasberg was tipped off. And they brought the signal. He was going after Trump on the Tren de Aragua issue, on the MS-13 deportation issue. He was trying to break Trump's presidency. Then he heard about this lawsuit regarding Signalgate and how they're trying to go after Pete Hegseth for apparently violating national security secrets, violating the Presidential Records Act. They're trying to put Hegseth in jail. Okay? So Boasberg calls the D.C. court district and tells the emergency judge, I just got tipped off. There's a Signalgate case against Trump. No. You're not going to take the case. I'm taking the case. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Breaking now as we speak. Judge James Boasberg has now issued an injunction against the Supreme Court. He now says the Supreme Court had no right to overrule him and that he's now going to hold the entire court in contempt. The whole court. Yep. I'm kidding. I'm joking, obviously. But I mean, he's that crazy. Seriously. What? They overruled me? Who the hell are they to overrule me? I hold you all in contempt. Okay. He's out of control. I think he's got a serious screw loose, I'll be honest with you. I think he's got a God complex or a Messiah complex. He thinks he's a one-man resistance against Trump. So I want you to listen now. This is Senator Eric Schmidt, Missouri Republican, on Fox. Listen now to this. Remember, what a coincidence. He's the guy that gets the case regarding Tren de Aragua to block Trump's deportations. Now he's just been smacked down by the Supreme Court. But he also gets the case that is suing Pete Hegseth over Signalgate? How did that happen? Because remember, if a judge goes out of their way to pick a case, that's illegal. That's illegal, my friends. That's a gross abuse of power. Well, apparently, somebody tipped Boasberg off. And when he was told that the Signalgate case had hit his district court, he called and he said, that's my case. There was an emergency judge that should have taken that case, that wanted to take that case. Boasberg said, you're not taking that case. I'm taking that case. Here it is, roll cut 14, Mike.
Judge Boasberg, over the weekend, it came out, he's not the emergency judge in D.C. He inserted himself in that role. He was on vacation. The case was filed at 2:30 in the morning. Somehow he ended up with that case. He wasn't the emergency judge on duty. So I think this requires further investigation and legislation.
So let me get that straight, because I'll quote you on that, because that is news to me and maybe a lot of other people too. If he wasn't the emergency judge who would naturally matriculate into that position on this, he just gets to pick himself and say, well, I'm the favorite. Let me go do this case against Trump.
He's the chief judge, and he inserted himself. That doesn't happen. The emergency judges 100% of the time get those cases. So he could have been tipped off that this was going to be filed, and while on vacation, he took the case. So again, this speaks to, I think, the very aggressive, unusual, and unprecedented measures that these activist judges are taking to insert themselves.
It's illegal. On top of everything else, it's illegal. Now, where's Pam Bondi? Where's Barbie? Seriously, where's Barbie? Where's Pam Bondi? They should be all, flip it. You had a conservative low-level district judge who was going after the Biden regime and blocking Biden and issuing injunction after injunction. And then it leaked that this judge had a vendetta, this conservative judge had a vendetta against Biden and was picking cases at 2:30 in the morning, knocking off the emergency judge and saying, no, forget it, out, I'm taking the case. How fast do you think Merrick Garland would be breathing down his neck? This guy, by the morning, by 5 o'clock in the morning, you'd have FBI agents kicking down this judge's door. They would be investigating him so fast, his head would spin. I got Fox now. I've got Newsmax lined up. I think, hold on, Sean Hannity wants me on for his radio show at 3 o'clock. And then I think Brett Baer. Brett wants me on between 6 and 7. So, and I think Newsmax may be interested for a primetime quick hit. So, and plus I got the beauty salon. I got to keep my hair nice for all the interviews. So, basically I got 2 hours to put in, to actually put in work at the DOJ. Come on. There should be a thorough investigation. Now's the time to talk. Hold a press conference and say this judge is compromised. This judge is dirty. This judge is an anti-Trump activist rogue judge who we believe now is breaking the law, taking cases in order to bring down the president. Instead, nothing. Where are the arrests? Where are they? Bill in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Bill, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Bill?
Very good. Thank you for doing what you do. It's outstanding content. I want to mention that when it comes to an attorney general or any investigation coming from the lovely state of Rhode Island, silence is always the most dangerous type of investigation or attorney general or attorney. I think that your points are outstanding, but I also think we're a little premature to the party. I'm significantly more, quote, if I were Schiff or some other people, very, very scared about maybe the investigations. And I have to say, in her defense, or the position, that's the difference, Jeff, between maybe this Attorney General and the last. Maybe this one is dotting her I's 3 times and crossing her T's 9. I think it's important that any cases that are brought to the forefront stick like super glue. We've seen what happens when somebody jumps to conclusions. I know, I agree with you, Jeff. It's not sexy. It's not Showtime. We had Showtime in the last 4 years. But I would also go on a limb, and if I were a gambler, and I would say that if the investigations, let's say, set up right before the midterm, and there's a gauntlet of cases brought against people with the I's, again, dotted and the T's crossed, and we get, as you know, based on your background, one person to crack, one person to what you would call rat out, the party is over for the long term. This is a long-term play, and I want to say something else. There's nothing worse than somebody saying, okay, guys, it's time for you to lawyer up, because that's painful. What's your point? What's your opinion?
Well, Bill, I think what we have to, as an audience, settle on, and we may agree to disagree on this, is how much time are we willing to give her? Right? I think that's the question. I'm willing to give her some time. Yes. I'm not willing to give her 18 months. I mean, if this woman is going to basically do nothing for 18 months, and all I'm being told is dot your I's and cross your T's, and we're going to make every case ironclad. Well, okay. Well, what case are you working on? Well, we can't say that. Well, I mean, we had that under Sessions and we had that under Barr. Remember, we got burned. That's the reason why everybody's a little antsy with Pam Bondi. We really got burned in Trump's first term. Now, look, Bill, not to change the subject, because obviously you're a very intelligent man, and your arguments are, you argue very logically, very coherently. So let me just slightly switch it, and you'll see what I'm saying. The DNC, the chairman of the DNC, has now come out and said that the Democratic Party is running a shadow government. They've come out and said it. It's not speculation. It's not an article that's citing sources. He came out straight from the horse's mouth and said, we are now running a shadow government to bring down Donald Trump. And not only are we running a shadow government, but for example, Adam Piece of Schiff, Senator Schiff, literally held hearings where no Republicans were allowed. No Republicans were present. They were called shadow hearings. Now, other Democrat members of Congress are doing the exact same thing. In the chambers, in the Senate committees, and in the House committees. Now, that is illegal. I don't mean it may be illegal. It's a gray zone, could be illegal, unethical. Is it illegal? I'm talking about that's congressional murder. That's me walking up to somebody on the street in front of 1,000 witnesses and shooting somebody in the head. It's illegal as illegal gets. It is illegal to have a shadow government. In fact, it's treason. It's illegal to hold shadow hearings. Remember, they're the minority party. So the minority party is now holding hearings and literally putting people under oath, claiming that Trump did this, Trump did that, Pete Hegseth did this, Pete Hegseth did that. You can look it up. I mean, Bill, they're being held, and they're saying they're doing this to build the case to impeach Trump after the midterms, and that they're doing this to try to ultimately overthrow his government. So they're running a parallel government to Trump's government. Now, I'm telling you, any other attorney general would be saying to Adam Schiff, get ready, lawyer up. To DNC chairman, lawyer up. To all of them, lawyer up. Where's Pam Bondi? Now, Bill, I understand you got to communicate. I understand you got to get your message out. I understand you don't want the media and the Democrats to frame the issues. I've never seen an attorney general. This is one of the senior cabinet positions. She's the top law enforcement officer in the country. Her position is parallel in terms of importance to Marco Rubio. I don't see Rubio on the talk shows. You see him once in a while. Look at him. He's got circles under his eyes. He's exhausted. Trump's working him around the clock. JD, circles under his eyes. Trump's working him around the clock. Look at Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary. Circles under his eyes. My God, the guy's putting in 18, 20-hour days. All I do is see this woman on TV. And I'm seeing outrageous crime after outrageous crime after outrageous crime. Now, I know she's not investigating them, because if they were being investigated, they'd be screaming holy, at the high heaven. They'd be screaming hell. So what I'm saying is, Bill, I don't see the aggressiveness. I don't see the tenacity. I don't see that killer instinct that I believe you need in an attorney general. How you can allow a shadow government, a parallel government, that's their words, not mine, and shadow hearings to take place. And not in the shadows, in the open, and bragging that it's the shadow, a shadow hearing. I'm telling you, I after a certain point, I don't know what to say. Either she doesn't want to do her job, or she's out of her league and out of her depth. I'll give her time. I want to be proven wrong. Believe me, Bill. I want you to be right and me to be wrong. I'm looking at Barbie. I'm looking at Pam Bondi. I think she's laying the groundwork for a career on Fox News. You want my honest opinion? She wants to be their next legal affairs contributor. She sees herself as the next Megyn Kelly. Until they got rid of Megyn Kelly. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Final word to you, Bill.
Points, obviously at more than face value, pretty accurate, obviously. I also would have to add that it doesn't, and I agree with you, it doesn't particularly look great that it's she's on the airwaves, media, different outlets, and looking like whatever it is, which I agree with you. I apologize what you had said. But I also hope, and I truly believe, based on her experience as, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, she was the attorney that put the hooks into CBS Corporation up here in Rhode Island. So she did an amazing, insane, in-depth investigative case coming, I think she was that attorney. And she is a pit bull. I think that, at least I hope the listeners understand, there's an old saying we used to talk about down here in Rhode Island. It's called, there's nothing but time. And time is very dangerous. I think she's going to do a massive amount of investigation. She's going to dot them. And I just think it's going to be when it goes down, it's going to go down where nothing can be turned around. Thank you, Jeff.
Bill, from your lips to God's ears. I really hope you're right. Bill, thank you very much for that call. Let me throw this out there, okay? Just let's have a little bit of fun. Are you satisfied with Pam Bondi? Do you think she's up for the job? Do you agree with Bill? Do you think, look, she needs more time, give her more time, she's dotting her I's, crossing her T's, she's still got to bring in all of her people into the DOJ, this thing can't be done overnight, Rome, as they say, wasn't built in a day. So, are you willing to give Pam Bondi more time? Or like me, are you starting to get frustrated? I'm asking. That's number one. Number two, let me ask you a second question. How much time are we willing to give Pam Bondi? I'm not being facetious, really. How much time do you think is reasonable to say, look, we're going to give you a honeymoon phase. We're going to give you some time to settle in. Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 9 months? Does she have until the end of the summer? Are you willing to give her until the end of Christmas? Bill says there's going to be, he believes, indictments before the midterms. So are you willing to give her 18 months into next year, into next summer, into the fall of next year? How long are you willing to give Pam Bondi? How long should we be willing to give Pam Bondi to start to see real arrests being made? 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Harry in Maine. Thanks for holding, Harry, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Harry.
Jeff, am I willing to give her more time? I'll tell you how I look at that question. Yes, I'm patient and willing to give her more time on the big cases, the things that really need to be investigated thoroughly. And like you, I'm losing patience, but I still feel, we got to give her some time. But on the things that are pretty simple, the low-hanging fruit, as we like to call it, she should be knee-jerk reacting at every one of those. The Boasberg example you gave earlier, where he was out of line. Latita James, you just pointed out about 45 minutes ago. She's out of line. Go after those low-hanging fruit. Your best defense is a good offense, and she's not on the offense enough. The other thing I tell you is, I'm 70 years old. I can't remember, maybe you can, but I can't remember an attorney general being on TV, except if it's a press conference, a major announcement or whatever. They get up, they make their statement, and they walk away. They don't even answer questions half the time. But these appearances on Fox News, Newsmax, it's nauseating. And while you're speaking of Fox News, I'm going to tell you something that's not going to end well. And I think it's nauseating as well. Laura Trump had no business taking that job at Fox News. She's compromised. If I were a liberal, I'd say that's a biased, person on the station. And I don't see how that's going to end well. I really don't. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. I just think that, I'm like you. I'm holding out hope. It's not been a full 3 months. But damn it, I think the low-hanging fruit, she needs to just, take a stance. And by the way, another name you didn't mention, you mentioned Whitaker and Ken Paxton. Excellent suggestions. But the other guy would have been great is Mike Davis from the Article 3.
Oh, yes. Oh, he's great. Oh, I agree, Harry. He's great. Look, I'm going to be honest. I thought all three would have been better than her. Now look, she's smart. No, what Bill said about her is she's smart. There's no question. And she was a very good state attorney general in Florida. And when she wants to be, Bill is right. She is a pit bull. So, she can show her teeth. There's no question. But I return to what you said. Now, I'm not 70, I'm 55. But look, I've been watching the Sunday shows and, since I was a teenager. I was a political junkie since I was a little boy. I can, Reagan's attorney generals, Bush's, Clinton's, Bush again, Obama's. Look, even Merrick Garland, I couldn't stand the guy. But I mean, how many interviews did Merrick Garland give? Now, again, he was a scumbag. He was a hatchet man for Biden. But my point is, I've never seen this. An attorney general who's like a media star. I've never seen this. Usually they say very little, you're right, or it's at a press conference, and they don't take questions. Why? Because they don't want to influence any investigations. But they're just hammering and hammering and hammering and hammering. And a really good attorney general, the fear of God, instills the fear of God. You're like, no, they're not. No, are they? Is that person investigating me? No, please don't investigate me. I don't get the sense that people fear Pam Bondi. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the Democrats are afraid of her. Boasberg clearly is not afraid of her. I don't think, to me, who's afraid of Pam Bondi? Harry, final word to you.
Wrapping it up is that the Republicans seem awful hesitant because they're worried about being construed as executing lawfare. And the Democrats have been caught red-handed. using lawfare to try to take down Trump, and they continue to do it now. So the Republicans have got to get over it. Who cares? If it's legit, go after these people. They went after...
Yeah, they went after us over lies, over nothing. Harry, I'm with you. If it's legit, do it. Okay, this is from Steve on Messenger. And he's completely right. I mean, he's on fire. Jeff, 4 months is way too long regarding Pam Bondi. Jeff, what about mass arrests on the organizers of the Tesla bombings? Not those that are committing them, those that are organizing them. So far, nothing. Funny, however, under Merrick Garland and Biden, they sent the FBI to Roger Stone's home. Why not on these organizers that are promoting the murder and assassination of Trump? If you said that about Biden or Kamala, i.e. that she should be killed or assassinated, they would be blowing your doors off your house and you would be out in handcuffs. You're completely right, Steve. This is what I'm talking about. Like, this is low-hanging fruit. There's not much of a, I mean, it's an open and shut case. And I think, Steve, this is to me the clinching argument. If Pam Bondi wants a job on Fox News, then she should just leave and let Ken Paxton, the Texas AG, come in and do the job. You know, look, if that's her ultimate goal, then leave. I agree. Go now. But don't use the position of Attorney General to augment your national profile so that you can lay the groundwork to become a talking head on Fox News. Now, Sandy was telling me off air that she completely disagrees with me, that Pam Bondi is a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. And lawyers know other lawyers. And that because she's a lawyer, she's dotting her I's and crossing her T's. And that Trump trusts her, and if Trump trusts her, that should be good enough for me. And my rebuttal to that is very obvious. Number one, since when did lawyers become infallible? In fact, to be honest, in the court of public opinion, I think lawyers are what? Maybe just a level above pimps and drug dealers? The reputation that lawyers have? So I don't think arguing that she's a lawyer is somehow, to me, a convincing case. But furthermore, how many times has Trump been wrong in the past when it comes to personnel? I mean, I love the guy, and I think he's a genius in terms of strategy and policy and three-dimensional chess. But this is the guy that gave us Jeff Sessions. Hell, this is the guy that gave us Porterhouse Steak Bill Barr. I mean, I could go on and on. So, you know, when it comes to personnel, let's put it this way. His record has been a little spotty. Now, then, she says, well, she didn't need this job if she wanted to be a talking head on Fox News. I disagree. Yes, she was known in Florida. Yes, she would be on once in a while. She's on 4, 5, 6 times a day. She would never be on 4, 5, 6 times a day if she wasn't the Attorney General of the United States. So I think there's no question, in my view, I could be wrong, she's angling for a gig on Fox. Now, if that's her real motive, fine, get a gig on Fox. But then let someone do the job who's going to start putting people in jail. And I mean now. Not 6 months from now, not a year from now, not 2 years from now, now. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. This is from 508. You can text us 70470, and I couldn't agree with this more. Honestly, 508, you're a genius. Jeff, let us never, ever forget that the legacy media are fundamentally and at heart entertainment businesses. All these companies, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, NBC, it doesn't matter. All they care about are eyeballs and advertisements. Their role is not to inform viewers, but solely to attract them. I once worked at one of the ABC News affiliates. We used to joke that our job was creating the bait for the hemorrhoid creams. In other words, to sell advertising. That's what it's all about. Eyeballs to sell advertising to make money. That's what it's all about. Jake in Indiana. Thanks for holding, Jake, and welcome.
You mean Jack?
I'm so sorry. That's my bad. Jack in Indiana. That was my fault. Jack was on the board. I should have said Jack. Please, go ahead, Jack.
Well, I don't know what...
Jack, hold on. Your voice is sounding very funny. It was a connection problem. Let's see if we can reconnect with Jack in Indiana. Jack, do we have you sounding like a normal human being? Jack, are you there?
Hello?
Jack, can you hang on? We're going to try to reconnect with you, okay? Let's go to... You want to try it again, Mike? All right. One more time. Hopefully third time's the charm. Jack in Indiana. Jack?
Can you hear me, Jack?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead, Jack.
Thank you. Love to your family.
I'm sorry, what, Jack?
Love to your family.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you. What's on your mind, my friend?
Happy Lent, even though I don't know what that is. But I know you're a history professor, so would you explain to me what the difference is between the Boston Tea Party and January 6th? Because you brought it into your program.
617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to go right back to Jack in Indiana, but just before I do, this is from Lonnie Brennan. He's the editor and publisher of the Boston Broadside, as you know, to me, by far the best conservative publication in all of New England. And by the way, their latest issue, dynamite, but let that go. And he just messaged me on my phone, and I want to share it with all of you. Jeff, I listen to a lot of talk radio. Yours is the only one with voice problems. I know. And I think it's pretty obvious what's going on, and it's disgusting. You know, it's just, you're right. You're completely right, Lonnie. And anyway, I'm going to continue to speak the truth, and I'm not going to hold back. And if they want to continue to play like this, I don't care. I'm not going to be intimidated, and I'm not going to back down. 617-266-6868. Just before I go to Jack in Indiana, just please indulge me on this, okay? Remember I talked about Elon Musk and Doge and how he worked with someone by the name of Antonio Garcia, who, by the way, is an immigrant, a legal immigrant to America, and how they found how, you know, this massive scandal of fraudulent social security numbers that they attached to illegal aliens, and how they found so many of them had been registered to vote and that many actually did vote. Now, why am I mentioning this? Relation to Jack, Indiana, Pam Bondi, Jeff, what are you talking about here? Both Elon Musk and Antonio Garcia said that all of this overwhelming, in fact, irrefutable evidence was sent to the Department of Justice and directly to Pam Bondi on her desk for her to investigate. So far, no investigation. None. The Epstein files. She's still sitting on the Epstein files. It's been now nearly a month. Now, maybe a little less Fox News, a little less Newsmax, and I much prefer Newsmax over Fox, if you want my honest opinion, but let that go. And a little bit more working on the Epstein files and releasing them, and maybe start going after this obvious rampant voter fraud. And here is what Antonio Garcia recently said. Okay, this was not at that rally in Green Bay where they made this dramatic announcement. This is him doing follow-up interview after follow-up interview. And you need to hear this. He's a Democrat. Antonio Garcia, he's a billionaire. He's a hedge fund guy. But he's a Democrat. He's a registered Democrat. He voted Democrat in the past. He said, had you told me what I just exposed and revealed and saw, I would not have believed you unless I saw it myself. And I did. So here is now what he said, again, in an interview, that the Biden administration's border policies handed human traffickers, the Mexican drug cartels, $13 to $15 billion a year to bring in future Democrat voters. Quote, we gave $13 to $15 billion a year to human traffickers. That's what this system did. He then goes on to say, listen to this. We looked at the voter rolls in 4 states, and we found thousands of these people, non-citizens, on the voter rolls. And we found many of those people had voted. In one state in particular, well over 1,000 voted. Yeah, this was a move to import voters. Now, they have the evidence. They have the evidence of massive voter fraud. It's going to be millions of voters. That's guaranteed. That have been illegally voting in our elections. All of that file, all of that evidence is sitting on Pam Bondi's desk, along with the Epstein files, along with God knows what else. Now, Antonio Garcia has said, we haven't heard back. Elon, we haven't heard back. Has she even launched an investigation? People say no. They haven't heard a thing. Now, again, maybe she's dotting her I's. Maybe she's crossing her T's. I don't know. But after a while, I'm starting to ask myself, is she more interested in getting a permanent gig on Fox? Or is she really serious about arresting people? 617-266-6868. Let's go back to Jack in Indiana. Jack, was your question, what's the difference between the original Boston Tea Party and January 6th? Is that your question, Jack?
Yeah, yes. And Pam Bondi is a superstar. And I get pissed off when you say that she's looking for a gig on Fox News. She's the Attorney General of the United States. You ought to know you're a history professor, for God's sake.
Okay. Oh, she's the Attorney General, but
President Trump is hiding the fact, and so is Pam Bondi. She's going to get these people, but it's not on our timeline. Why would you, I'm not even a lawyer, but why would you broadcast, I'm coming to get you?
Well, Jack, when you investigate somebody, you know that person's being investigated. That's my point. And she's not investigating anybody. That to me is what's shocking so far. So, look, Jack, the reason why I'm mentioning this, Jeff Sessions was Attorney General. He ended up doing, butt kiss. He did nothing. Bill Barr did nothing. Those were Trump's 2 Attorney Generals. They did nothing. So I don't want to see a repeat with Pam Bondi. Now, I want her to succeed. I hope she succeeds. I supported her when Trump nominated her as Attorney General. But, Jack, my job is not to be a water carrier for Trump. My job is to be to push Trump and to push his team to do the right thing. So, yeah, I'm going to pressure Pam Bondi until I start seeing arrests. I mean, Jack, don't you want to see people arrested?
Well, yes, but what is the answer to my question? My first question: what's the difference between the Boston Tea Party and January 6th?
Well, the big difference, Jack, is the Boston Tea Party was the beginning of our war ultimately our war for independence. It was a protest against the king for no taxation without representation. In other words, that we have the right to representative self-government and that we will not be ruled by tyranny and by oppression by a foreign monarch and a foreign king. And we didn't just create a revolution of individual rights. We created a nation. And that was the beginning of our national independence. What January 6 was, essentially, was trespassing on Capitol Hill, breaching the Capitol to protest a stolen election. I thought the election was stolen. I think they had every right to protest. I think they had every right to go to Capitol Hill and protest. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy.
Hey. The angle I'd like to bring to all this, Jeff, is that in terms of U.S. Attorney Generals, we are not in normal times, like, for example, back in the Reagan years or even the Bush years, etc. We're in a day and an age where there is an intense information war. There's information warfare going on, particularly in the legacy media. And what's happening is certain Trump administration officials, in addition to all their constitutional duties, they're having to be on the airwaves fighting this constant information war. And unfortunately, if that information war goes unanswered, people start believing all the garbage that just gets recycled thousands of times, like daily. I would like to propose this, Jeff. The Smith-Mundt Act, I wasn't even aware of what the Smith-Mundt Act was until you talked about it, I'm going to say, close to a year ago by now. And I do remember, like, the telecommunications bill that Obama got passed, like, back around 2012. But I was not aware of the Smith-Mundt Act being taken out of law at that time and the significance of that. What I propose, Jeff, is this, is that putting that Smith-Mundt Act back into law gets moved to the top of the priority list. In Kuhner country, like raising awareness of what the Smith-Mundt Act was, and the importance of putting it back into law. One of the big things coming up on the horizon is the budget, and right now it looks like it's going to be a big, beautiful bill. We should start making it very hot for Mike Johnson, for John Thune, for Republicans in Congress, and we should spell it right out to them. You're going to put that Smith-Mundt Act back into law. We're not going to leave you alone until you do this. And we could make them just slip it in to that reconciliation bill. I mean, there's a number of ways it can be put back.
No, Andy,
order.
Look, I think it's ingenious. I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea. Look, the Smith-Mundt Act, for people that don't know, literally banned, it made it illegal for the U.S. government or the media to engage in propaganda or the indoctrination or brainwashing of the American people. And what Obama did in 2012 under the Telecommunications Act was he literally repealed Smith-Mundt. He got rid of the Smith-Mundt Act. And that's why, if you've noticed, really it's been about 13 years now, the information war was unleashed. The propaganda war was unleashed. And that's because they got rid of the Smith-Mundt Act. So I completely agree with you, Andy. Republicans need to get that restored. And if they did, it'd be a fundamental game changer. No, Andy, look, what I would like, because I hear what you're saying about Pam Bondi. It's an information war. Jeff, an AG now is different than AGs in the past. You may not like the fact that she's always on TV, but she's got to get the message out. She's got to articulate the administration's positions. She's got to combat the false media narratives and the lies and the disinformation. Okay, I hear you, Andy. Look, I'm willing to give her time. The question is how much time? Because honestly, I don't want a repeat of Jeff Sessions. I really don't. I don't want another Bill Barr. I don't want someone who's all talk and no action. So I'd like Kuhner country, and maybe we should even do it as a poll question. You know, is it another 3 months, another 6 months, another 9 months, or whatever it may be? But when is it when we say we want to start seeing arrests? And if we don't start seeing arrests by this particular date or time, look, I'm sorry, we got to get someone else. Because if people aren't arrested, then the Democrats are going to come back to power and they're going to do it again. That's why we need to hold people accountable. Not just for the sake of justice and accountability, but really as a deterrent so they never do this to our country again. So, look, I'm flexible. I'm willing to give her time. I think I want a shorter rope than many of you are willing. I think many of you are willing to give her more running room than I am. Maybe I'm a little bit too impatient on this. Fine. But let's agree, ballpark, what we think that should be. And then, we won't revisit the issue until the issue comes up again. But look, I want to see arrests. I want to see a lot of arrests. Trump promised arrests, and I think we, the American people, deserve them. So anyway, on that note, Dynamite Show, the callers outstanding. Bye-bye.